Morning. I hope everybody is doing safe and well. Obviously, I hate to start off another press conference by saying, unfortunate with the cancellation of the UTSA game. Hopefully we can sit down with these and relive a previous game and look forward to the next for many weeks to come. But as we know, this is a delicate state we're in. Obviously, unfortunate to cancel that game. Hopefully we get healthy and well so we can play a great SMU opponent. But really our focus, as always, has been is the health and well-being and safety of our young men. We're continuing to monitor that on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, we're excited to add Stephen F. Austin later in our season. Obviously, their athletic director, former Memphis Tigers, so excited to welcome him back to the Liberty Bowl. And we know down the road that'll be an opponent. So we try to add. We're still working with the conference on rescheduling of the Houston game. And as soon as we know that information, we'll obviously, us as an athletic department, will get that out to you guys as soon as possible. A few other notes, I was able to, with a little bit of downtime this weekend, monitoring our guys. I talked to a bunch of college coaches throughout the country just to get a feel for what's going on. And, everybody's going through something different, right? Some of these teams you look at are staying healthy, and that's great. And I talked to some others that said, man, well, we had the exact same thing you're going through happen this summer, right? When they got back in June and July, and their COVID outbreaks occurred during the summer, and some of it was privy to the media and other wasn't. And so, a lot of them just said, hey, they're going through it. Someone shared a quote with me from Coach Fuente, right? Former great Memphis coach, literally came out and said, who's paused twice and they still haven't even played their first game. And he came out and said that, literally, they're day by day, you hold your breath on these testing numbers. And it's the same. I mean, there's a lot of sleepless nights. I'm not asking for anybody to feel sorry for us, but college coaches throughout are, holding their breath, worried about the health and safety of their players. We've seen other programs that have come out and said, hey, we had, 75 positives and we're getting through this and moving on. But, again, we're monitoring our situation. I do feel like, we are getting progressing and getting healthier. But again, it doesn't happen overnight. As you guys well know, the contact tracing is also a big part of this whole thing, right? You may have one guy, you may test 250 people, and one person gets positive. Well, then contact tracing can wipe out quite a few people. So I didn't feel like it was the best interest to us as a athletic department, constant conversations with Laird Veach to put our guys out on the field until we were well, and we're still working towards that. This week's schedule, just so you guys have a heads up, is we're going to try our best to get a modified. I know Stephen asked me what a modified practice was. We're going to try to do a modified practice on Tuesday, guys, tomorrow. And we will not be at full force with all of our guys, but we'll be out there. And then the same thing on Thursday, and then see where we're at from a numbers standpoint and try to do something on Saturday as well. But, still continuing with some Zoom meetings, still checking on our guys. Obviously, as COVID's occurred, you guys are seeing even the universities putting out different things, right? We're trying to get a handle on making sure our guys are doing what they're supposed to academically. They can no longer have face-to-face tutoring, even through plexiglass or through, sit-down meetings with advisors and those things. So it's hard, but we're progressing. And as we get a feel for this thing, we're learning every day. And hopefully, again, like I said, at the end of the day, the safety and health of our student athletes is our number one concern. And with that being said, as we get that point, continue upon our college football season.
Okay, first question.
Hey, Coach. It's obviously been a while since we talked to the players, but from what you can gather, what do you sense their mentality is now that they will have a month between Arkansas State and their next game at SMU?
Yeah, Cassie, I was concerned, and I talked to our staff about it, and it's how they would react to understanding that we're pushing things back. But they understand that we don't want to line up in between those light lines without our family, without our brotherhood. And I think when they put it in that perspective, and a lot of our guys have had COVID, and they understand the severity of this. And so we have guys that are in quarantine. And so I think they want to be able to play with as many guys as we can, get back on the field. It's no fun to go out on the practice field missing your teammates and looking around and seeing that all your guys aren't there. So like I've said all along, I give full credit to our student athletes. Our players have been steadfast in their approach. They've stayed positive in their mindset. And it's us coaches, right? We're the ones that are, I struggle with this as much as anybody because the changing of the schedule. Wait, okay, I just broke down these last three opponents and now I got to change it. We got to move on. But our young men have been wonderful. And, we tell them every day, take a different approach and, to attack each day the right way. and we'll continue to progress. And I think they're learning a lot too. But I've been pleased with their mindset.
Okay, Stephen Johnson.
Hey Ryan, how's it going?
Good, Stephen. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. Kind of a follow up to Cassie's question. Like she said, it'll be a month off when you guys return to the field. For you as coaches, I'm sure there's going to be some expected rust. What can you guys do from a preparation standpoint to try to minimize that with so much time off?
I think one of the things we can do is, as we get back out on the field is let's not outcoach ourselves, right? Sometimes we think that we can be these, create all these new schemes and do all these things. Well, let's get back to our day one fundamentals. And, it's kind of like I mentioned to Terry Davis the other day is like, we've got to be really good at our base fundamentals. And I think that's what we're going to have to be throughout the season, because we don't know if it's our starting right tackle or the third string right tackle that may line up in a week-to-week basis, given every situation. So we've got to be really good at our base plays, offense, defense, and special teams. And I think as long as us as coaches don't hinder our players, we'll be okay. And I think part of that, we took that same approach going in without any spring football with a limited training camp. So do I expect a little bit of rush? Sure. But again, our guys are great, and I think we'll be just fine.
Okay, Evan Barnes.
Ryan, how's it going?
Good, Evan. How are you?
Good. So I know you mentioned Saturday, that guys are going to be making sure that they're fit and everything is going to be taken care of. What exactly will be some of the protocols and things you're going to be looking for, or some of the things they're going to be put through to make sure that, before they get on the field, obviously that they'll be fit and ready to go?
So we tested again yesterday. We're testing again on Wednesday. So we're still following our normal COVID protocols. But Daryl Turner and his athletic training staff, plus our team doctors, team physicians, have done a great job of monitoring these guys, right? So once a guy clears COVID, they get the full cardiac workup. They're not allowed anywhere even near the building until all that work is done to make sure they're cleared. Same with a guy that's in quarantine, right? You can have a guy that could be in quarantine for 14 days because of contact tracing. And, that 15th day, you don't want to just throw them out to the herd. So we've got to be smart, and we monitor. We do different things. Our athletic training staff, our strength staff, and us as coaches need to be aware of, guys, we're not going to go out there and run a 25-period practice, right? A 2.5-hour practice. Shame on me if we go out there and do that. So it's progressing, and then we'll do the same this week, is progress to where we need to get to. And, you just hope that come kickoff, in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, that you're fully ready. And we know that some guys will be and some guys won't be. And you just got to monitor that. I think that's one of those things, that being able to play a large number of guys, right? We're going to have to roll at different positions because some guys have been out. There's a well-known school that had a starting offensive lineman that got contact traced for 14 days, came out, went and moved in with his parents, went to practice, and then the next day, I believe it was his sister, that became COVID positive. So then he had to go quarantine again for another 14 days. So he's been out almost a full month as a starting offensive lineman. You talk to the coaches of that school. I said, well, they said, well, it's just going to be near impossible for him to be able to play at any type of level, right? He can do, even if he's not COVID positive, he can do push-ups and sit-ups in his room, but it's very hard. And so we monitor that stuff as best as we can, Evan, to make sure that we're progressing and certainly not throwing anybody immediately in the fire.
Okay, Clayton Collins.
Hey, Coach, you talked about a lot of the different coaches across the country you've talked to. How have your communications been with Mike Norvell, and have you spoken to him since obviously this weekend he tested positive? And, what have you taken from your communications with him?
Coach Norvell and I, as you guys well know, have a great relationship, and we've maintained that relationship since, our roles have changed. And I wish him nothing but the best. Obviously, I've got a lot of dear friends on that staff. We have talked pretty regularly, and then most recently via text message, but I have not gotten on the phone. Neither of us have talked. We're both pretty darn busy, and I know I know him. There's no rest for the weary that he's game planning for a Miami team, even though he can't be present during the game. And he's doing well. And I also, checked on his family, obviously with his wife and daughter, to make sure they're healthy and well. But him and I maintain a good relationship. Obviously, I give him a lot of credit for being where I'm at and appreciate his support. And I think vice versa. And I plan on me and him being friends for a long time and supporting each other throughout our profession. So I'm glad he's doing well. Obviously, this thing's, Clayton, one of those things you worry about, we think about the student athletes, but I also worry about certain coaches. You never know, right? We sit there and say, hey, even if I live in a bubble, right? All I do is I drive my short distance to and from work, and you never know how this thing can act. I talked to the head coach at Rice, a good friend of mine, right? He's got teams in his conference that have already played 2 games, and they're not even allowed to practice yet. And so you just sit there and you look at the grand scheme of everything that's going on. And again, yes, am I disappointed that we've lost some games and that we've had an outbreak here? Yes, I am, absolutely. But we're going to do everything to monitor to make sure, again, the safety of our guys in the entire program, right? When we're testing, it's not like we're just testing, hey, 116 student athletes. We're testing everybody. And, some that you guys know very well, and our staff. And I see Tammy giving a smile. She's excited for her test again on Wednesday. We'll make sure we get her the double nostril test, so we'll be good to go.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Mike Sadie.
Morning, Ryan. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good. A couple of quick questions. You remained steadfast over the summer of your message to your players about COVID. Now that you've had the outbreak, how has that message changed? That's the first question. And the second question is, can this program survive a second outbreak now that you're having a month between games if this was to happen again?
Yeah, Mike, the message hasn't really changed much. We constantly talk to our guys about living right in all situations. Like I said, regardless of what socially may occur, like I said, we had to put 2 guys in quarantine because a mom came to an Arkansas State game and spent the Sunday morning having breakfast in the apartment complex and didn't feel well 2 days later, even though she was COVID negative. It took out 2 of our players that were going to play substantial time for an extended period. So I do think the message will stay the same. Hey, we got to be smart. I think some of our guys are having more of an understanding, right? Our guys do wear masks in the building. Our guys do certain things. But, some of them don't forget, hey, you get in the car, and just because you're in the car with your roommate, let's go and put on a mask. And that means everybody involved. And I think there's certain lessons that we're trying to learn. And I think everybody through college football is trying to progress in the right way. Different ways we're doing, right? With, our lunches, our dinners are now grab and go. So we don't have anybody sitting down in the cafeteria enjoying lunch or dinner. And it's just different things. We're trying to be smart the best we can. Does anybody have any answers? Or all the answers? Certainly not. We see, some of these programs are coming out and say, hey, we've been COVID free for a month. Well, that's wonderful. And I'm so glad to hear about that. But I talked to the coaches there and like, oh yeah, in June we were down 63 players. I'm like, okay. So, Mike, I don't, to say the message has changed, not really. We just got to continue to be smart. And then, from here on out, gosh darn, another COVID outbreak. Let's keep our fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Does that mean that our numbers are going to be perfect throughout the board? No. I certainly think we're still going to have some positives here nor there. I just hope that it doesn't spread or affect. And really, at the end of the day, just hoping that nobody gets sick from this to where it hurts them long term.
Hey, Mark Giannotto.
Hey, Ryan. Just wanted to ask you, what was your thinking on the Stephen F. Austin game, scheduling that? Just curious in terms of, was the rationale you just want as many games as possible, or and the other side of the argument would be, would you want that extra week open in case something else happens? But just what was your thinking in scheduling that game?
Well, when we lost the UT Martin game and the Purdue game, we kind of started to explore what else may be out there. And I know you guys had all asked a couple months ago, like, hey, what are we doing to replace Purdue? What are we doing to replace Martin? And at the time, it was, I promise you, we're calling as many people as we can, seeing who can play us. There's a lot of teams that, that have conference restrictions, state restrictions. So we were trying to reach out to as many programs as we could to see what we can. And certain things have been on the docket. It's no different, right? With the conference has talked about, hey, where are we going to put this conference championship game? Can it be flexible? No different with the Houston, right? Are we going to play the Houston game in our bye? Does it maybe fall after the Tulane game? So a lot of that stuff, Mark, is still kind of, as we know, a juggling of the schedules, right? Can this Tetris piece fit with this Tetris piece, and move them all around for you guys that remember the game of Tetris. Some of y'all are looking at me sideways. But just moving the puzzle pieces around, and we just, hey, it was Stephen F. has been playing a schedule, which has been great. Kudos to a lot of those teams that are trying to play as many as they can. And they said, yeah, we'd like to play it. So we were able to, Laird and Jeff Crane put together the schedule so we were able to play that one.
Is there a silver lining in, obviously you wanted to play the San Antonio game. You don't want the circumstances that that prevented you from playing it, but the fact that you get this extra time to prepare for the conference gauntlet, if you will, is that a carrot you can use with the guys during a disappointing situation?
Yeah, and I understand the question. I guess maybe if we were out there and I had 115 guys running around, I'd say, yeah, okay, we're getting training camp back. But the reality of it is, it's I don't know if I'd ever trade. I mean, gosh darn, I wish we were playing UTSA because we aren't full force and we're not, and so that's part of it. Yeah, maybe as a coach, I get to, I normally wouldn't be watching, 2 weeks ahead on SMU, so maybe I'll be able to peek at SMU this week. But like a lot of coaches, so much of my time is being pulled away from what happens on the field and more just checking in on our players and dealing with certain issues outside of what occurs on the white lines. And that's why I keep telling our staff. We had a staff meeting this morning. I just said, hey, guys, our number one goal is to make sure that our guys are doing well, check on them, check on their well-being, their mental health, their academics. I've never used the word academic so much in my life, but I truly believe it, because if they have success in their mental health and they're getting healthy and then they're doing what they're supposed to academically, I do believe when we get out on the field with all of our guys, we'll be just fine.
Thanks.
Okay, Cassie Carlson.
Coach, you're describing all the contact tracing. It's like a revolving door, and everything else you're having to adjust over the past couple weeks. Can you give me a word to describe the overarching emotion of coaching the Memphis Tigers right now?
If you're looking for one word, I'd still say I have pride. I mean, I have a great pride in what we're doing, and I think they care for our guys. But like I've used the word for a long time with a lot of these guys, I remember Jeff Brightwell and all doing all these Zoom calls forever with different people. And it started from, being named head coach, the Cotton Bowl, to the COVID stuff, to social justice, a whirlwind. And it really has. And there's been some gut-wrenching nights. And that's just the truth. I don't mind being straightforward and saying, guys, yeah, this is not easy, right? We sit there and you wait around for test results. Daryl Turner, our head athletic trainer, and I have conversations through the late ends of the night, just trying to make sure. And I sleep with a depth chart next to my bed just so I can sit there and say, okay, where are we? How are we? And making sure our guys are okay. But I still take great pride in leading this program and trying to do it the right way. And the nice thing is the people within the Memphis Tiger football program know that we are doing it the right way, and we're going to continue to make strides. But like a lot of us, we're hurting because we're not healthy. And as long as our guys come back from this, and nobody knows the long-term effects of COVID, but if our guys feel like that we're capable to get back on the field, we'll continue to have that sense of pride moving forward.
Evan Barnes.
Ryan, Coach Mack told us a few weeks ago that because of contact tracing and making sure guys are ready, he had to, move different guys, teach them multiple positions. So for you, is that something as a coaching staff you guys are looking as well? And have you identified guys who maybe can play multiple positions? Obviously, you recruit guys that are, wide receivers or DBs or O-line, D-line. Have you identified guys who can play multiple roles if needed?
Yeah, Evan, I think that's one of the things is, especially in this region, we'll be able to get a lot of athletes. I'll be pretty honest with you. Some of these DBs have reached out to me like, hey, coach, I can come play receiver for you, and vice versa. I get some of these receivers saying, I can play both ways, right? They saw some of these throwbacks from back in the day. They wouldn't remember the likes of Charles Woodson and guys like that. They were two-way players, big-time guys. But, we got guys like JoJo Dorsius, right, starting defensive lineman that's also a fullback. We've got certain guys that we have. We're looking at different guys in the return game. And that's the nice thing is a lot of our guys are willing to do whatever it takes to help this team, right? We've had starting guys that are, 80 plays a guy. Starters on offense have not had a big role in special teams saying, coach, let me go play 3 phases of special teams so I can help this program. And that's awesome. It goes back to the word I just used with Cassie is like pride. Like our guys want to do everything they can to see this program succeed. And no matter the number or the percentage that are out on the field, they're all, hey, whatever I can do. And that's really, kind of puts a smile on your face. I even mentioned this, and this is one of those things I hadn't done in a while is, we have a young man named Markavian Quinn. And sometimes my office kind of looks out to some of the practice fields. And, there's been 2 different occasions that he has no idea that I'm looking out that window. But I saw him one day picking up trash off the field when the field had cleared, just picking up some of the Gatorade bottles because his teammates didn't do what they're supposed to by putting them in the trash receptacles. And then another time, carrying the water coolers to help out some of the student managers to make sure that, that stuff is getting put away in the right way. And so I think everybody, you hope that this continues from now for eternity, but takes a lot of pride in our program and the way we want it to look like. And again, I think sometimes a long-winded answer to your question, Evan, is that guys playing different positions, guys trying to step up and help out wherever they can.
Okay, Mike Sadie.
Ryan, it was a big win for UCF this weekend. Leading into this season, there was a lot of talk that maybe this would be the year where the American would get a legitimate shot at making the college football playoff, because obviously the Big Ten and the Pac-12 weren't playing. What's your thoughts now with the Big Ten back? Do you think that the AAC is now pushed back maybe a little bit where it usually is and is going to need to have some huge year by one team? Or do you guys still think you might have a realistic shot? Where does the Big Ten coming back make you feel about your chances as a conference for the playoff?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Obviously, I'm glad to see the Big Ten coming back. I mean, that means that more people feel like we can get a grasp on this thing and try to move forward playing football. And so I'm happy that they've decided to go forward with it if they feel like they can do so in a safe manner. And then you look at the grand scheme of things, Mike, does that affect the playoffs? I'm sure it does to some extent, but I'll stand on this table and say the AAC is one of the best conferences in the country, and I firmly believe that. I mean, I wasn't able to watch much of it, but everyone was pointing out to me, right, the Tulsa Oklahoma State game. I mean, gosh darn, you look and go back to it, and you look at and I talk about Tulsa all the time. Tulsa beat UCF last year. Tulsa, that kick away from probably me not being on this Zoom call right now with us, given the history of what occurred in that game. Tulsa's one of those teams. You look at the Navy team, what they were capable of doing, right? We've seen and you have 5-10 win teams from last year coming back, and the ups and downs of college football right now. I think this conference is as strong as any. UCF, obviously, we know they're going to be a perennial powerhouse. Cincinnati is loaded. Every team in our conference is. So I'll stand very strong in saying that I think our conference can go head to head with just about anybody.
Clayton Collier.
Coach, I know you haven't wanted to go into specifics about positive numbers or anything like that, but at this time, is it accurate that the majority of those unavailable are contact tracing and not positive tests?
Clayton, I think, yeah, good question. And like I said, this is not me trying to be rude about this. So, but to answer that, I'd say it's probably about equal, and I don't mind sharing that. I think it's probably we're at that equal point right now, and we are starting to slowly get people back. We have in fact, we do have a big contact tracing group that probably won't be back till later in the week, and then maybe even further on, because sometimes that contact tracing group can last longer, right? And when was that last contact? So, but we're going to continue to work, and this is more of an athletic department because someone said, hey, you're the only one to kind of talk about this. So our athletic department's going to work as best we can with Shelby County Health Department to make sure we're on the same page on certain things. And then, it's each sport. So even if it's 4 months from now and you guys are talking about women's soccer, I think that as an athletic department, it's kind of going to be our athletic department numbers as a whole rather than sport specific. And I kind of use the example for basketball. I think we're going to see as other sports start to get going, right? I don't know. And again, this is a guesstimate by me saying I can't imagine a coach coming out 4 days before a game and saying, hey, I'm down 3 guys with COVID and another 5 with contact tracing, and I'm going to roll out there with 5 players 3 days before a game. Now, it may, but I just think that. So anyways, what I'm going with all this is I think we're going to stick with, as an athletic department, trying to be on the same page with our numbers in general. And that's not trying to hide anything. I think it's just where the university and our athletic department and, we can get with Laird Beach on that stuff and just make sure we're all on the same page moving forward.
Stephen Johnson.
Coach, I was just wondering when you have these off days on Saturdays, just how do you pass the time?
Yeah, most of the time I'm still up here in the office working. I don't think there's no really downtime. I do find myself being able to reach out to some recruits more. I was able to try to relax a little bit Saturday evening and catch some of these college football games. But we're constantly rolling. Our staff is still trying to work. Again, it's a full-time job just checking on our guys, making sure they're doing the right things. But it is a little bit different when you're, the game plan's changing and you may not have everything you need to continue to move forward with your game plans. But other than that, as you guys know, I'm a pretty boring person, so it's not like I was out on Beale Street Saturday night. I was in my bed probably by 9:30 that night. So exciting stuff.
Okay, last question from Mike Sadie.
Ryan, I know how this is going to be answered, but I'm going to ask anyway. You talk about competitive advantage with a number of positives or contact tracing, but can you give us an idea when you say you're limited in the amount of players that are practicing? You got 100 guys on the team. How many are able to practice right now if as you go out there tomorrow?
Fair question. And not all of them. So we're still missing guys. And that's part of it. We need to, enough where we don't feel comfortable where we could go play a game. And that's the reality of this whole deal. This was not a quick decision to say, hey, we're not going down to UTSA. We still didn't feel, even leading up to the game, that we'd be where we need to be. And I think, some of these things, talk to the guys at Charlotte, right? They lost, they canceled their game versus UNC. And again, one of the reasons why I explain some of these situations, because it's always new to me. I'm learning, and it's just, I think it puts things in perspective, right? Charlotte lost a handful of offensive linemen due to contact tracing. Well, if that's 2 weeks, well, just because they canceled one game, where does that fall in line, right? If it's a Wednesday test and if it's 2 weeks later, where does that fall in line? Then will those offensive linemen be ready for that third week for that game? So I always, those are just certain questions. When did the contact occur? When was there another positive? What happens if another person pops up in that room that gets a contact tracing? So I just think you constantly are, you do have a separate, and I'd use the word roster management at one point with Brian Moss, but I do think you talk about roster management with that, like, okay, where will we be? Here's a projected depth chart, or projected what this room may look like, in 2 weeks or in 5 days or tomorrow. And it's an ever-changing deal. Knock on wood that hopefully we can, keep a depth chart and stick with it and stay healthy.